like to welcome everybody to this second international online meeting of IVAN. We're looking at towards post-pandemic NMR operations today. Anybody that would like to not be recorded, please turn off your video and your microphones as we are recording today. And I am now going to turn it over to David Rice, and he can get us started.
Okay, well, I'll repeat Eric's welcome to everyone, and thanks for coming to this meeting. I've been really amazed at how many people we've been able to get together, and so really thank you for all coming and all the faces haven't seen in many years. So I'd also, to get this meeting started, I'd like to thank John Webb from MR Resources. For those who don't know what IVAN is a user group that we found that is sponsored by MR Resources. And we started in 2016 and began doing user meetings before the ENC. And we just finished our 4th user meeting at the Baltimore meeting, just in time. I'm certainly happy we made it through to that meeting. And John has a variety of companies, and one of them also is, a newer one is Q1 Americas, which is dedicated to bringing equipment from the Q1 spectrometers to most of the world, including the Western Hemisphere. So John, are you there?
I am.
Want to say anything?
I do. Good morning, good afternoon, evening, as the case is, wherever you may be. We've got a great turnout today. I think upwards of 140 people or so. And I'm glad that everyone could join us. Obviously a very important topic. And I'm sorry we can't offer lunch and a post-meeting reception at the at today's meeting, as we normally do, or as we always do at our live meetings. But well, perhaps one day we'll figure out DoorDash or Uber Eats for these things. But anyways, I'm really glad everyone could join us today. And Dave, I'll turn it over to you once again, and let's get rolling.
Okay. Our meeting. So I'd like to introduce Ken from Virginia Tech, who has done a lot of work to lead this meeting. And probably many of you know that Ken posted a question to AMMRL a couple weeks ago related to our topic. And we invited him to come and lead the meeting and lead the discussion. And so Ken will give when I turn over the meeting to him, will give a short presentation, about 10 minutes, based on the results from the AMMRL survey. And then we will turn the whole thing over to our discussion. And I'll try to make sure everyone is recognized. I'd appreciate if people, when they started to speak, would remind everyone of their name, because no one has everyone's picture in front of them, and so it's nice to know who's speaking. So anyway, with that, I'll introduce Ken.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Well, thank you to the IVAN group for inviting me here today. My first big meeting invitation stems from a little question to the AMRL group. I also want to thank the AMRL community for being so generous with their responses on this topic, and really not just this topic, but AMRL has been an invaluable resource for me as I was thrust into a facility manager role without sort of the traditional upbringing as a spectroscopist. And I have had a lot of questions, and everyone's been willing to share their knowledge and experience with me, and I think that's fantastic. I really hope everyone continues to make AMRL a thriving community. Share your knowledge, share your stories, share your experience, and ask the questions, because I've already asked all the dumb ones. There's only good questions left. All right, so I'm just going to have a short slideshow here just sort of to give us a framework for this discussion, so we're not too wide in our discussion. So we're talking about reopening our lab in this environment of the pandemic, and we're all trying to come up with some sort of plan to open our labs. So the goals of this reopening for this plan are to maintain physical distancing while we manage and use our facilities. How can we manage our space, our unique environments, and still have a really efficient use of our facilities? And we're going to kind of break this down into little bite-sized chunks here about what equipment you have in your lab, how is your lab laid out. We've all spent a lot of time developing really fantastic and efficient workflows for our facilities, and now we have to change all that for this new environment and still meet the expectations of both our users as students and as their faculty. So we're talking about creating customized plans for each of our facilities. I recently posted the results of the discussion on Amaral, and there were a ton of great ideas in there, and I'm sure we've all looked at those and found that some of those aren't really going to work for us, and some of those are terrific things we didn't think of. So we're looking for a combination of those ideas to achieve these goals for our facility before someone else thrusts a plan on us that may not be as good as we can come up with. So as far as equipment, we're talking about how many NMRs you have, what kind of NMRs you have, how are they spaced. We are fortunate that the nature of NMR means they're pretty dispersed within our labs, but the workstations might not be. We have different environments where our labs might be multiple rooms or even in multiple buildings. And definitely there's a distinct difference in the way you're going to operate in this environment on a manual instrument where it's sort of self-isolating by nature, or an automated instrument where you've got really high traffic. In our case, we have two automated instruments in one room. 90% of our samples go through that room. That's a lot of people touching a lot of things, and that's a contact point that we really want to minimize. So when we talk about lab layout, you want to think about the flow through the lab. How are people getting in and out to the instruments without coming into contacts with each other? You may consider doors in your lab that you never really thought about using before, maybe doors you don't even know where they go. And then maybe it's time to change the way you have your workstations laid out in your lab. So as far as workflow, again, I talked about this earlier, we all pride ourselves on how we've developed these efficient ways for our users to utilize all of our various equipment in an efficient way and get their data and all these different things. And we've got to change all that now to maximize social distancing or physical distancing. There's some interesting things to think about, like how the hours of our operation may need to change. One big one I just really thought of today is, how is this going to work on the weekends when we're not here? I have a plan for how I'm going to do a lot of things, but that plan did not do a very good job of thinking about the weekends. And then there's some discussion at our university that there may be some staggered scheduling among research groups. A half of a research group may be working in the evenings and half of it may be working in the daytime. So now you have to accommodate both of these groups and find ways to get their samples done when you may not be present. So as far as user expectations go, this is really important to get to communicate and to get feedback from the students and the faculty about what they expect to happen. We'd all love for it to happen the way it's always happened, but we're really going to need to change our format, and we may have a system in mind that we think is going to work really good, maximize the use of our facility and our own time, but it may not meet some critical demands. So we need to find out what those critical demands are. I've thrown sanitation on this slide just to talk about the levels of that, because some of it's going to come from our institution. There may be things that they mandate, like that people can or can't, or may have to wear masks, or maybe we can't enforce that. There's obviously personal sanitation. We're hoping that people continue to have an enhanced level of hygiene and wash their hands more frequently than ever. But now it's our job to think of the specific circumstances in our lab. How are we going to handle the surfaces that people are going to commonly come in contact with? I have two keyboards in front of me. I keep pushing the wrong one. All right, so I'm just going to run through sort of the steps that I thought of and what I thought was a particularly challenging case, which is that for my automated systems. As I said, that's where most of my samples come through, and it's definitely the highest traffic situation. So we've got more people coming in contact with more surfaces. So this is where a disease could be transmitted really easily, and I want to eliminate that. So the steps, when I break down the use of my automated systems, kind of come into these little chunks of how are we going to receive the samples, how are we going to get those samples into the robot, how are the students or the researchers going to queue up their experiments, and then how am I going to get those samples back to those users. So there's a couple different ways you could go about this. One is sort of similar to the way you've done it. You can still allow students to load their samples into the robot, maybe limit the amount of times that they can be in the room, or limit the amount of people. So you may have one assigned person from each research group responsible for bringing all the samples down from that research group. So you're cutting back the number of people. Or, and in our case, this is, I think, where we're going, you may decide that in a high traffic environment like that, it's better to just receive those samples externally and have the staff load those samples. So how are you going to go about that? And another challenging part of that is how are the students going to sort of submit their experiments? We definitely don't want to get into a case where they hand us a bunch of scrawl on paper and I've got to translate that into an instrument. So we have some options where maybe people can remotely connect to the systems through something like BNC and submit them as they always have. The challenge there being if they're submitting the samples outside of the lab, how do you kind of time their login to the instrument after you've had an opportunity to get those samples into your robots? Alternatively, you can make this more staff managed through a spreadsheet system or an automated submission system, and that's what we're looking at doing here at Virginia Tech. So I'm just going to show our flow that we've decided to go with at Virginia Tech for automated systems to address those topics. So we've decided we're going to have students drop off their samples outside the lab. We're going to limit the number of people who can bring those down. Again, one person from each research group will be assigned to bring all the samples down from that group, hopefully once a day, maybe a few times a day if necessary. And they're going to load those samples into a numbered NMR tube rack. And that will allow them to track their sample by location rather than us have to interpret some kind of sample name on a tube or something like that. The staff is going to load the samples from that rack into our robots as required, probably several times a day. Again, how is this going to happen on the weekend? I hope I don't have to work 7 days a week now, but we may have to have graduate students assist in this on the weekends. As far as experimental submissions, we're going to use a shared Google Drive spreadsheet that everyone will have access to, and they're going to fill out their experimental details for each sample on that spreadsheet corresponding to the location in the racks that they've dropped off their samples. And at least with Agilent Systems, this macro CSV2 CPQ developed long ago by Krish has worked fantastic, and it allows me to still maintain my billing, and that the samples are still loaded by login, by group, and it works really, really nicely. And then as far as getting the samples back to the group, we've previously kind of put the samples into a hood, and everyone kind of comes into that hood to collect their samples. Again, we want to minimize that, so we're now going to have jars for each group, And because these samples are sort of being loaded in chunks, group at a time, it should be pretty easy to get those out of the robot into the group jars. And then, each day as they bring their samples down, they'll take them back. So I just wanted to kind of introduce the topic in a structured format, in a way we can all think about this. And we're going to move now to these discussion topics. These are kind of based on the summary list that I posted on Amaral a few days ago. I hope that that slideshow was a little bit useful to sort of manage the discussion, but at this point, I'm going to hand it back to Dave, and he is going to lead the whole group discussion. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, well, thanks. I assume everyone can hear me. Thanks, Ken. I guess I'd like to start the discussion maybe by asking people how many people have are in fact opening up fairly soon, and when, and have other people done plans as Ken has done. So I'll just ask that out to everyone if somebody wants to speak up.
I can speak up. This is Dean Olson at the University of Illinois, and we're allegedly opening up June 1st. It's not official yet. We were told to get ready for that date. And what I wanted to offer, just in response and in contrast to Ken's approach, our approach toward managing automation is exactly the opposite of yours. And this is an institutional expectation. And it's basically going to be open it up, hands off. It's only one instrument. That's a difference that we have compared to you. And we would expect the users to figure this out themselves. We're going to give them some guidelines. We're going to check on them. But use the instrument. When you get back to your lab, wash your hands, maintain physical distancing. That's it. We'll check in on you once in a while. If you have trouble, let us know, because that's what people expect here. So I think we're going to be hearing a lot from people about their institutional perspective.
Someone else?
I mean, this is John Harwood from Purdue. Hey, Dean, how you doing?
Oh, very good.
Here at Purdue, we never actually closed our facility. We were designated a critical research support facility, and we've been allowing people to use the facility in the same way they always have been. And we put a few rules out there, and I put some signs on the doors requiring, I say quote unquote requiring, because obviously we're not here all the time, requiring people to wear masks and giving them a limit for the number of people in each of our rooms. We have multiple machines in multiple buildings, frankly. They're all manual operation. And so really, kind of like Dean says, we clean stuff up when we, the staff, are in the building, but I've been working 2 days a week for the past couple of months. And my engineer, Jerry, who most of you guys know, has been working 1 day a week. But obviously, we're not going to be here all the time, so we can't be wiping stuff down all the time. We leave alcohol out. Obviously, we have isopropanol readily available and Kim wipes, and we encourage people to clean up, and do that as much as they think is necessary. Going forward, I would like to require people to wear clean gloves in the lab. I guess that depends on administrative support, but I guess basically I'm sort of chiming in to kind of parallel what Dean said, that I guess I sort of see it. I mean, I don't think that we can police. We can't be the safety police, because we're not going to be there all the time. And if you've got an open access facility, unless you're going to make a huge change in your operation and all of a sudden make it no longer open access, I guess it seems like we're kind of limited in how much we can do as a practical level.
I have a question. So you never closed. Did your customers diminish? Because that's what we never closed either, but most of our customers were ordered not to come on campus to do research.
Yes, that is the case. We had one or two research groups who were conducting COVID-19 related research, and they were keeping going. But yes, for the most part, everybody else was not here. So yes, our usage level went way down, but we were open in the normal fashion for the people that were here.
Ryan?
There were a couple of chat questions. One from Charlie Fry. John, it's to you. How are you handling keyboards and spinners? Wash, gloves, cleaning schedule. And then another one from Robinstein. How many users do you have at Purdue? And there's further questions, but perhaps that may be a good questions to answer.
So our total number of users is about 300, but during the shutdown, we've maybe had a dozen users kind of in and out of here on a regular basis. So obviously, and I mean, of those 300, you know, not all 300 of them are active all the time. So, I mean, in terms of the cleaning, I mean, obviously, like most places, you know, we do nitrogen fills once a week. So when we're here to do that, you know, Jerry or myself clean. I mean, clean mice, keyboards, spinners, depth gauges, and so forth. And on the days that I'm here when I'm not filling, I will sort of periodically go and do those same jobs on the machine that's currently our busiest machine. But you know, we haven't implemented and never did implement any sort of specific, you know, cleaning schedule, like every hour, you know, hourly, daily, or something like that. And again, we've communicated with the users that they need to be aware of that, and we've given them the tools in as much as they have Kim wipes and isopropanol to do it themselves. And again, only really a small number of users have been here on a regular basis the past few weeks. So obviously, as things open up, then that has the potential to be more difficult.
Francis.
Yes, Francis Picard,
Yes.
Stony Brook University. We have, over the past several weeks, I mean, the whole university, similar to the people at Purdue and perhaps your institution, the whole university has been locked down, basically. All research, with the exception mostly of ongoing COVID research, was stopped. And we were asked as a collective university effort spanning all of the active departments in this kind of thing to contribute to a program that was very detailed, very specific in how we were going to begin opening up, a phased reopening. So, and those things dictated how many students could be in floor space of a certain size. It set up a buddy system for multiple users at one time. So we had and the sanitation issues were pretty well dealt with, gloves, masks, all of those kinds of things. That's general to get into any lab at Stony Brook University. So what we did was to take that general framework, make whatever changes we could have made that was specific to NMR and include those in there. And for instance, the keyboards, to get into the facility, we provide the gloves. The students themselves, users, provide the masks. But we use our gloves because of concerns of cross-contamination. If the students or the users bring gloves from the outside, you don't know what the history of those gloves have been. And we have 5 instruments distributed on 2 floors, and we restrict only 1 person per instrument to be in the room. The room is very large, so we don't have to worry about social distancing, that kind of stuff. And then we have, we participate in the FACES scheduling system. So we watch and make sure only one person certainly can be in the room, and in order to get into the room, they have to have scheduled their position in the FACES system. It's an ongoing 24/7. We have about 140 users, and the only tricky issue, so that is all working. We had several labs doing COVID research. We're looking in the next week or 2 or 3 to open it up generally. We've used the COVID people as test beds for implementing these procedures. And so that's kind of the way it's going. We make modifications as we find we need to. The sticky point is going to be maintaining social distance during training. We have in September, we expect a fair amount of students to come to join us. They'll all have to be trained. We're setting up overlays of Zoom meetings with remote access, no machine type based remote access to facilitate our training effort. And so that's how it's going. And so far it looks pretty good, but we had to conform all of our stuff to a very detailed protocol devised by the university as a whole, with, you know, the NMR facility and other facilities were certainly present and able to contribute to those things. So that's what happened at Stony Brook.
So thanks, Francis. Yeah. Yeah. Other people?
There is one. There is another chat from Charlie Fry again. He says, facility being the center of a breakout, what are people doing to enable contact tracing?
Right. I see that there, and that's an interesting question. Ryan.
Good morning. It's Ryan McKay from University of Alberta. We had to reopen our facility yesterday, and we have everything from contact tracing. So every single person coming into the building, the entire chemistry department is reopened. We have contact tracing. We have a Google form that every single person has to fill out when they enter the facility. Everybody has to fill out when they exit the facility. We have extensive distancing in all of the labs. We have space in terms of occupancy for each room posted. For the NMR facility, we've gone to a single cleaning station at the entrance to each room. So we have multiple rooms for our instruments. It was just too complicated to try and figure out how we would clean everything all the time. We had a situation where we had paper towel and isopropanol out for each computer workstation, each spectrometer, but compliance was not good. So we've gone to a situation now where there's a cleaning station at each, all of the doors are blocked open. There's a sign in your way, there's a cleaning station, you hand sanitize, and then you isopropanol rinse down your samples. So what we're hoping is that the hands and the samples are clean when they go into the facility. Then we don't have to worry about all of the multiple spinners for the robots, the spinners for the individual spectrometers. We're hoping that everything's clean on the way in and that it's maintained. We've got isopropanol and paper towel out for everybody at each station if they sneeze or if they touch their face or anything like that. The staff goes through and we clean everything in the morning from 8:30 to 9:30, so all the users are locked out. We clean everything that once in the day, and then we hope from there that everything gets maintained clean. I can send you the extensive signage we've got, the extensive rules that we've put in place. I'm trying to minimize the contact between users and staff. So it's up to the users to keep their stuff clean when they're in the room, and they understand that. We do not allow gloves. We do not allow lab coats in the room. We want everybody to leave that in the lab. The contact tracing, I see there's some questions coming through about that. That's a Google form that was set up, but we've run into some problems because the people who set it up just for the university itself. We now have to create separate forms for our commercial clients and for anybody that comes in to do repairs, things like that. I'm trying to think if we've got anything else. I thank you very much for the presentation. There was a lot of good information in there. A couple of things that I've forgotten, that's what we've been done. That's what we've done so far.
Thanks, Ryan. Actually what you said about signing on going in, Actually, that idea was new to me. I hadn't thought through that far yet. Jeff mentioned something that the key card system records who goes in. I don't know, Jeff, if you're
Yes.
If you're there.
Yeah, I'm here somewhere.
Okay. And so, are you in fact actively using the key card system? I'm presuming
Yes.
yours is very similar to ours.
Yeah, we've had everything on. All of our rooms have been on card key systems for a long time, simply as a matter of security. And we really haven't tracked people going in and out until now, but it's really simply a matter of printing out a report. So if we have to, we can trace who goes in when. And in fact, the hardest thing about it is that all of my staff, they all have physical keys, and they tend to use the physical key instead of the card key. So I have explicitly told them use the card key, at least for this duration.
So you're actually, oh yeah, that's what I wanted to ask about. In the earlier meeting, you mentioned also that you are using your schedule to admit people to the room.
Right.
So people have to reserve in order to enter the room.
Well, that is correct. So we had one system that was a walk-up system, and we changed that to a reservation system. All the other systems were already reservation.
Mm-hmm.
So, that has been a bit of an issue. The students have to, or rather the faculty have to apply to be able to do research during shutdown. And there are certain reasons for that. And as those faculty members get approved, then they say, well, these are the graduate students that are going to go in there. And then I've got to approve them on that scheduler. So it's been a bit of a challenge, but just trying to keep up with it. It works.
Okay. And are your users, are you opening up, so to speak, or is the university opening up for other research groups now?
The university is in what they call phase 1X. We're not quite phase 2, but during phase 1X, there are exceptions whereby PIs can do research for very specific reasons, including COVID-19 related research. They can also get permission to do that if they've got really valuable samples that will go bad if they don't run them now, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. I just checked the usage for the last week, and on the 600 in chemistry, we're about 60 to 70% of what we would normally expect. And on the walk-up instrument, that's still
That's a mark,
not
grad.
very much. It's about 20% of what we would normally expect.
That's a mark, grad. Jeff Walton, runs UCDs.
So this is Dean Olson at the University of Illinois, and on that topic, Jeff, so we have a double logon system. You have to make a reservation and log on to the reservation software.
Mm-hmm.
Then you walk up to the keyboard and log on to the So
Somebody said we're using
what I've done is I've removed,
the door.
there's some people talking, you need to mute.
Yeah, is there somebody who could mute?
Yeah, just mute yourself. Anyway, I've removed the ability to log on to the reservation system from the lab. So that tends to be a congregation point, a choke point, a bottleneck. And I said, look, you do that on your phone, you do that in your own lab, then you come to the NMR lab, and I'm hoping to eliminate that traffic jam.
Right.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
There were a couple of chat related to the reservation systems. Some questions or comments were having a mandatory blocks between reservation slots so that there will be a block of 5 minutes reserved between slots so that people, there will not be a social contact. Anybody else want to comment on that? There were a couple of them related to that.
Well, I could comment that I asked to have that implemented, and the software would not allow it.
Okay.
Can you identify yourself?
Oh, this is Jeff Walton.
Oh, hi, Jeff again. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I tried to I asked for that, and I was told that the software couldn't handle it.
I will say that just for that, our university is just entering into a reservation system using the Agilent iLab, and so we're just trying to get our users to reserve for the first time, and I've been able to keep most of the systems close to being walk-up. But so it will be interesting enforcing reservations on everyone in our university.
Mm-hmm.
This is Josh Kurtz from the University of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to comment on a couple of items here with regard to compliance and enforcement. So we've been open since our nominal shutdown, and we've had about 12 to 15 users coming through regularly for COVID research. We have required gloves, which is something that it looks like a lot of people have been wondering about. There are issues with people just wearing the same gloves that they had in lab, but I wanted to introduce the innovation that we used here, and that is pink gloves. So basically, we require everybody to put on fresh gloves, but they weren't. But when we were providing just the normal blue or purple nitrile gloves, people kind of did a little bit of both. Some people complied, other people just skated by. But now you can walk into the room and tell immediately if somebody was wearing fresh gloves because nobody else has these for their own lab. The other thing that I've had trouble with is enforcing distance between people because nobody really seems to know what 6 feet means or 2 meters when they're actually talking with each other. The boundaries get very close. So I've started out marking the floor with duct tape, different colors and patterns for different instruments, so that in our room where say these, it's basically like mapping out a 5 Gauss line, right? So we have a 6 foot line, where the center is focused on the chair in front of the spectrometer, and so we're getting some better compliance with that. The other issue with compliance that I've found to be a problem is if any new restrictions come through by email or are posted in text, I've had miserable compliance among certain people. But once I started putting up photos or images of like just pictures of gloves and pictures of people wearing masks, then compliance went way up. And one thing that I think is going to be important, at least for our university, and one thing that I'll have to get some help on this week is getting any new safety to or any kind of policy changes translated into Chinese. Yeah. Because we have a lot of people who I can talk to them as much as I want, and I can post as much as I want, but it gets ignored until I have pictures, and I think that Chinese translation is gonna really help. Anyway, those are sort of some of the issues that I've encountered. I've also encountered other issues that probably aren't going to appear once we actually open up for regular business. But in cases where building access is supposed to be restricted or access to the lab is supposed to be restricted by swipe cards, I have had people who were so eager to come into lab that they were getting their friends who had access to swipe each other in, and so I mean there's only so much we can do to monitor these things, but it's something to keep an eye on. Anyway, so those are some of the problems and solutions that we've got.
Yeah, I think from looking at the chat that I think many people think pink gloves are awesome.
I found them from Electron Microscopy Sciences.
Okay, yeah. I'll just make a little comment that I've started wearing a purple nitrile glove to the grocery store, and the the biggest thing about it is that it opens the little vegetable bags.
Oh,
great. Very well, yes.
Josh, also, are you requiring face masks? I haven't
Oh,
heard
yeah.
any mention of that today.
Oh, yeah. So we're requiring the face masks, but the other thing with that is getting people to use them right. I mean, we've been at this for a few months now already, or at least a couple months, and still there are people who who will wear a mask below their nose, or you know, they'll have two straps and they'll have one so that's kind of dangling and it's kind of swinging by their chin, or even now I've been encountering that. And so basically I've been trying to figure out a way of reauthorizing people to access NMR only if they've passed a certain safety video. And I think that the university is coming up with some kind of like a 2-minute safety presentation that they can be required to take. And if I get that, basically part of my reopening plan is to just change everybody's passwords. And then only if they agree to comply to certain safety regulations, then they get their new password. So yeah, so compliance is going to kind of require some extra training.
Related, Krish here, related to training, there was a question: is this done typically on a lab by lab training for this phase, or is it a communication procedure? And then there was a second question related to that. It's not second question, comment from Dean was University of Illinois has a safety video that could be used. And the third one was a quick question, probably an easy answer. Are you using surgical mask or N95?
Basically, we're just, well, the university is providing surgical masks. But basically, no, you know, we're, I haven't actually seen anybody wearing any homemade masks here. So they've all got surgical masks or some kind of regular produced mask.
I think that's interesting in that in our university, there has been, well, we haven't really opened and we are quite shut down. But I have not seen any standardization of masks, and most of the masks I see are personal ones.
Yes,
it's interesting that do other people, are their universities providing masks?
Jeff Walton,
yeah,
at UC Davis. Yes, the university has provided masks for us. They're kind of limited in quantity, but we have been given 3 masks each. So, and they're washable. So you use them and you can take them home and wash them.
Genevieve from Toronto. So I'm working at Princess Margaret Cancer Research Center. So because we are in connection with clinicians that are working in the hospital, we're going to be given a mask every single day as soon as we enter the building. There will be a screening first, and then we will be getting a mask. No one is allowed to come into the building with their own mask because nobody knows where the masks are coming from.
So anyone else on masks?
Dave,
yes.
Francis Picard here at Stony Brook University again. 2 things have become evident. In our case, the main facility laboratory room has a security camera in front of it. And there's appropriate signage about masks and gloves. We provide the gloves to avoid contamination coming in, but just the fact, and we're going to put up a sign that says that entrance and exits are being recorded. And just that sign alone, even though we don't get that recording, the recording goes back to the campus police, but they keep it. And that's how we to be able to support our contact tracing and other kinds of things. We do not have a key card system, but we do have, as I said, we use faces and we require people to leave a block between the signups. So that's how we're trying to avoid collisions between people. But the sign pointing out the video is a real is a real issue, and that's very helpful.
So I see what Charlie has said, that the university is requiring, if I understand right, PPE from the university. So I guess I would ask the question, I think we've covered a lot of the entrance and security issues and sanitation issues. I guess let me ask Ken, another question that I would bring up from Ken's discussion might be to the question of interaction with users and how to do that remotely. And so are people thinking about remote access, remote conversations with other people and mechanisms for that purpose? Ken?
Just from the discussion on AMRL, it's clear that people are considering ways to maintain social distancing during contact via Zoom chats. They're not allowing people to just drop by their office unannounced. They have to schedule meetings via email or phone call or something like that. But one thing I want to mention on sort of this overall topic is that it's clear that the steps that we all need to take start at an institutional level. We are not going to be able to operate in the fashion that Dean mentioned with this sort of continued open access, because it's come from the university that we have to take more stringent, at least initially, more stringent limitations as to how much contact people can have. You know, so that's kind of the top level that we all need to consider, is what is our university going to allow, and some are obviously more open than others. But back to the support, I'll let everyone else talk, but I think we're going to do what many people have mentioned, is just require appointments via email and do as much as we can via Zoom meetings and things like that remotely as far as support goes. I also have access to all of our instrumentation via VNC, so I can you know, troubleshoot and things like that from home or office.
Are other people thinking, and I think you brought up earlier about automation or no automation. You're very stringent about when your users can bring their samples.
Yeah, we're trying to limit the number of people and the amount of times people are coming down. So we're at least initially going to require each groups to designate a single individual to be responsible for their group samples. But that may relax over time and may be a disaster. We're doing that right now with just a few groups and it's working fine. But when we have 30 research groups, all of a sudden it could be a whole other story.
Are any research, I'll ask this, is that right? Oh, no. Oh, are any research groups, and I'll ask this question generally, allowing people to initiate their runs from online? And I noticed you mentioned in your report that the Brooker software, IVAN NMR, allows that, and you're thinking about CSV to CPQ. Are people letting people run instruments online?
Dave, this is Martha Morton from University of Nebraska-Lincoln.
Yes.
Had one user doing protein samples on my 700 during shutdown.
Mm-hmm. And they did that over VNC or?
TeamViewer.
TeamViewer, okay. Are there other people?
This is David Jones at University of Colorado.
Yes.
And we run everything pretty much remotely. And we're much more of a biomolecular. We don't have the problems of a high throughput, large number of users who might access the facility. But we've been running basically remotely for a long time. And we have users who send samples from across country. And we've been using TeamViewer, but we've actually had a lot of success with No Machine. More recently, that people seem to have been using that rather than say VNC. And so we're encouraging all of our users to move, all of the remaining users to move towards that model of accessing the instrumentation.
Yeah, I had not heard about No Machine. I think Jeff brought it up at the last meeting. But are other people using No Machine? I think that's probably something to look into. If I understand right, it has no license fees.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been using No Machine. I installed it just before we did the shutdown, and I've actually been doing a lot of method development on our automated instrument here, because I basically just said, okay, I reserve slots 1 through 7 on the carousel, and everybody else uses everything else. And so I just, anytime I come in, I populate it with a bunch of samples, and then I've just been running it remotely.
Okay.
But in our high throughput organic chemistry kind of environment, I'm not sure that it's really going to work very well. We've also got a weird network architecture that makes it okay for me to do it, but not other users.
Okay. So are other people using interesting remote type arrangements?
No Machine at Stony Brook.
No Machine. Okay.
No Machine, we've been using that for quite a while. It works very well, especially on Linux-based devices. We have Brooker instruments, so that it works very well.
Yeah, David, this is Jeff, and we've been using Real VNC.
Yes. I use Real VNC to get on the instruments myself, mostly for administrative reasons. I'm always afraid to run the sample changer remotely. I guess I'm not very trusting person for the equipment. Do any people run their automation with cameras in the room? No. Okay. So we're coming up on past about an hour here. So I guess I'd like to ask, are there other questions that we should bring up about the related to this topic?
Hi, Dave.
Yes.
This is Charlie Fry. Figured I'd finally speak up from University of Wisconsin. Just a really great meeting. There's so much information. I'm pretty surprised actually, and really gratified at how many universities are open, and with more open policies than we've been looking at. Perhaps University of Wisconsin just taking a very conservative approach. But I just wanted to mention, there were a couple comments on chat that it'd be really useful to collate the information that we've seen, and I'd be particularly interested. I'll send something on Amaryl email to try to collate how many of us are open, and some type of summary or spreadsheet or something, whatever's best to give information about the policies that are being used. So that would be really useful to me to provide to my administration, so we can get a better feel. I'd like to think that they already know who's doing what, but that's probably too much to expect. In any case, big thank you for organizing this really great meeting. It's been super useful to me, and I think to a lot of other people. And I'll try to help with a discussion on Amaryl email.
Mm-hmm. I think that is a good point. Hopefully this meeting is being recorded, and we hope that the recording will go through properly. Though recording a meeting this large is somewhat touchy. One of the things that we were discussing privately in relation to this meeting too was to post some of, for example, Ken's slides and other information from this meeting on the IVAN website itself.
Yes, the posting and recording I think will be super helpful.
Yeah.
I just love to see something that would help collate the amount of information that's here, but really appreciate it. And I think the recording and Ken's slides are great, and that'll be helpful too.
Yeah. So we're the IVAN, probably most people only know the IVAN website as the place where you register for meetings, because we really haven't made use of it very much. But we are thinking about making use of it for information storage. So I hope that will go forward. And I think that's in relation, anything that, I agree with you that we can make use of more questions to AMMRL that collate information about what we're all doing.
So Dave, this is
Yes.
Dean Olson at the University of Illinois. We mentioned in a preparatory meeting for this Zoominar that we would create a document depository for reopened procedures from various institutions around the world. And then somebody mentioned, I think Eric from MR Resources, that the text of the chat box could be made available as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the chat box text will be made available, and video. It's a large video, so it takes a little while to go through and stuff. But that will also be available through the IVAN website, and I will send emails to all participants with links to the IVAN website and other pertinent data and information.
So that sounds like we've got a plan going here, and so I'll be happy. I'll be happy to see us move forward on that. And so, are there any other comments that people would like to make?
I've got one question. Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Are we going to have the ability to send you our documentation that we've had to create, like our lab signage, our documents that we're sending to users? I think I wish I could have seen other people's before we had to produce ours, and I was just thinking maybe it might be useful for other people to take as a template and then use in their facilities.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a great idea. I presume at this point that people should contact the members of people like me, Krish, Eric, and we should be we should try to be in communication about that subject and gradually populate the IVAN website. But yeah, I think it's a good idea. I mean, for example, signage, not having everyone write different signs is a good idea.
Should we post to AMMRL, or do we send directly to you? What's the best way to get it to everybody?
I would say, okay, well, other people might say differently. I would suggest that if you have information for the IVAN website, that you contact one of us directly.
But there's no reason not to do both.
Yeah, I mean, of course, to contact AMMRL as well, to have discussion about all this material is certainly separately a good idea. So, I mean, but AMMRL discussion and the IVAN website are two separate things. So we should sort of treat them as that. So are there any more comments?
This is John Harwood again from Purdue. I guess we're maybe kind of winding down here, and I actually have a commitment myself relatively soon. So I don't know if we can start a whole nother discussion, but one thing that somebody else had mentioned a while ago, which we have put on hold here in our facility, and I don't really know how we're going to go back to doing it, is the user training question. Somebody did mention that in the chat, and it didn't really get picked up because obviously that's a pretty big topic. I mean, the way we used to do training is our TAs used to meet with 3 or 4 people in a group, right next to one another on the machine, and we'd be there running stuff and talking back and forth. And obviously that's not going to work for us anymore. And so I don't know, maybe going forward in some of the AMMRL and IVAN communication, maybe, those people out there who have ideas about this, and I have to admit, I don't really know how we're going to tackle it. If that would be something that people could maybe put out there for the rest of us to look at and discuss.
This is Dean Olson at the University of Illinois. John, same dilemma, obviously. And the only 2 ideas I've had is we traditionally have group members pre-train their own group members. We've always done that. And then I've got to shorten the face-to-face training. I just have to. And then also I got some really big monitors for the spectrometers that we typically train on. And I am not planning on being next to somebody when I train them. And I'm going to probably limit training to 30 minutes. That's all I've got.
So you're thinking about sort of doing your semi-normal training, but just with less people and physically just space apart when you're doing the training?
Well, we always do it individually because there's only one mouse and keyboard. So that's kind of a tradition here. But I don't have to sit next to the person. I would prefer to, so I could grab the mouse or point something out on the keyboard. But I think we just can't do that anymore. And it's got to be a lot shorter. And a big monitor helps read what other people are typing.
I'd like to jump in really quick. We have traditionally held classes, groups of 8 or 10 people at a time for our training. And that had been like kind of growing from an hour and a half to almost 2.5 hours with the number of topics that we're covering, from instrument use to using MNOVA and different things like that. So one thing that I've been able to do over this shutdown is to start recording a lot of that. And I've made the safety portion into a 30-minute presentation they're now going to watch on their own time with a little quiz or something associated with it. Same thing with use of our heavily used automated systems. It's going to be a recording now. People just kind of watch that video. And even I could probably go to the same thing for the MNOVA training. But outside of that, the training is going to be Zoom-based. And I don't think there's a lot of real reason to have it in person in this day and age.
So you suggest having a recorded meeting, a recorded session, say on your website, and tell people to use it.
Yeah, we'll have required training recorded videos, and they'll be required to watch those and take some sort of quiz or something to make sure that they're actually doing it. And then, yeah, I mean, that should cover most bases for our walk-up instruments. At least the top spin systems are a little more complicated.
How do you make those recorded videos?
Kind of like
Zoom
this,
or with other software?
Just with, I kind of remotely connect to an instrument, and just there's software that will record your screen, sort of like Zoom is doing right now, and then I'll talk through it.
That's what I was planning to do as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just make videos and just post them on YouTube or somewhere where they can watch everything, and then have a quiz after that, so I know they have been paying attention and learning everything.
Dave?
Yes.
Francis Picard here again. We're getting ready to fool around with a combination. There's a couple of people that we really need to train, and intensively so. And we're going to use, both of us will be, we have 4 people that do training, and both of us will be in the room when we're training someone on an instrument. There are actually, there's several computers in the NMR room, and we launch no machine connections to the instrument. So the person being trained is physically in another desk on the other side of the room. And I'm in front of the console. They're launched into the console for control using the no machine. I can see their screen, they can see mine. And so we're going to be using that, and a combination of that with a Zoom overlay and a background training video. That's going to be the model that we're trying to put.
Okay. So basically no machine on the console through Zoom.
Yes. Yeah, more or less.
Yeah, right. Okay. How are any other ways that people are addressing training?
We are using here at UWM Milwaukee. You use Teams for communication.
Who is talking?
Frank Forsterling, UWM Milwaukee.
Okay.
And we are using Teams for communication. So a combination of VNC, No Machine, and Teams is probably what I'm going to be using for training, at least. And maybe some video of the really hands-on things, like how much solvent to put in the sample, and how to put in the sample the things which maybe you can't just do with a remote controlled desktop and actually require physical contact. And yes, me either being in another room or maybe even at home if I'm with kids still at home, not in school. There's a whole other layer to this whole issue where we may not be able to be in as much as we would like to because we have other responsibilities. So yes, training with, but remote desktoping any way you want, no machine VNC into the spectrometer, then have maybe if the student on the spectrometer and me, that's what I'm thinking right now, me on the remote end to help guide them through the process. And have a second monitor for Teams so we can either put instruction on there, even have a video contact. So I put two dual monitors on one of our spectrometers right now for that purpose, just to have more screen space for documentation and other things.
Okay.
One advantage to recorded videos I found is that students really appreciate something they can refer back to. Having a live session with them is great, but we all know they tend to forget everything when they leave the room. So they've asked for things that they can watch as many times as they want. Some of them, you know, appreciate a PowerPoint or something like that.
So anyone else on the topic of training? One thing that I'll bring it up here, it's somewhat peripheral, but you know, we as NMR managers have, and I'm thinking now of the NMR training as opposed to the instrument operation training, that we as NMR managers have access to so much very good content that is all on our individual web pages, and duplicated, of course, many places. It would be interesting, I think, to be able to assemble some of that information to make that generally available to everyone. So I'd just throw that out as another idea for academic NMR training for our people. I mean, there's so much stuff out there, and it's all specific. You know, it's on web pages, but you know, you don't download someone else's content. But even if you look at it all the time. So anyway, that might be an interesting topic for some future meeting.
Has NMR Wiki been used recently?
I'll ask that question to everyone. I've looked at it a few times.
Well, I'm just wondering if it's still being maintained. I haven't looked at it in a while.
Yeah, I have not. I have occasionally looked at it, but that's an interesting idea, whether there's any solution out there that really meets everyone's needs already.
Last time I looked at it, I was having trouble being able to access or contribute, so I'm not sure if there's a browser issue with just me or whether it's more widespread.
So I guess perhaps this is a good time to wrap up the meeting.
Well, I have a question that's off topic, and I remember during our last meeting, I was talking about Open VNMRJ and how wonderful it was and how I couldn't wait to load it on a spectrometer. And, you know, be careful what you wish for, right? Because I had a hard drive crash. So I'm here installing Open VNMRJ on a VNMRS, or actually a DD2.
Yeah.
So, and so far it's been going very well. The only questions I have are, is BioPack included with that? And also there were 3 other packages that I know Agilent released passwords for. Were they Dozy and Kraft, and I think it was Back Prediction? Are they included with OpenVJ?
BioPack is in, and all the passwords have been removed, so everything is free now.
But
okay,
not
so
Craft anymore. The old Craft is not supported anymore, so it's not part of it.
It's not part of it.
It's in the Git. I think it's in the Git library, but the OpenVNMRJ2 release DVD does not have Craft.
How about the download from the internet is the same way? It does not have the Craft.
Correct.
Yeah.
So to enable BioPack, do you have to create a BioPack user?
Same as before, whatever you had to do before.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what you had to do. So, okay.
Yeah, I think that OpenVNMRJ and all the related remote and software topics might be good topics for future meetings or workshops. So why don't I take this moment to thank everyone for attending. And I think this is great. I guess we're well over 100 people at this meeting, which is a good fraction probably of the NMR of the NMR manager community. And so I want to thank everyone for coming, and to also to actually let's see, and to thank Ken for putting this all together in his presentation and getting us going. Though lots of other people, Dean and Ryan, I think have submitted various documents to MMRL that we've seen. So I thank all of those people as well. I certainly hope that this will be the first of, or the third or second of many possible IVAN meetings, and I think it would be online, and I think it's really a great thing to think about how we can use this platform in different ways to get together. So I thank John for letting us do all of this and sponsoring it.
Glad to do it, Dave. And IVAN is, gee, what are we, just about 5 years old? Just about 5 years old at this point, and we've certainly broadened our horizons, especially over the last few months or so. We're very enthusiastic about onwards and upwards with the IVAN group, and I really appreciate all of the participation from everyone today, everyone's attendance. But in particular, I'm very grateful to the IVAN Board of Directors, also to Ken for putting together a wonderful presentation today, and all of the others involved in sort of the background work that we put forward to put these meetings together. We're going to continue these. The thinking at the moment is that maybe once every couple of weeks or so with these Zoom meetings. And of course, we would love to go forward with the live meetings again at some point. I guess we're all unsure when that sort of thing is going to happen. But in the meantime, we've got the Zoom platform, and we're certainly open to suggestions, comments. Send us an email, give us a phone call, let us know what sort of topics are of interest. And as I say, the thinking at the moment is to continue with these meetings as much as once every couple of weeks or so. And again, many thanks to participants today, to the IVAN Board of Directors, and to Ken for helping out with this tremendously.
Well, thank you, John. I guess with that, perhaps we should adjourn the meeting. Anyone else? Okay. So I thank everyone.
Thank you.
And
we'll see everyone soon.
See you at the next meeting.
Bye.
Bye-bye.